Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight, and welcome to Goodbye 2020. Hello, 2021, embracing our mental health. My name is Pete Miller, and I am one of the Tahoma School District board members. I've been a resident since 2004, and my wife and I have two kids in the school district, a son who's a freshman at the high school, and a daughter who's in fifth grade at Glacier Park. Tonight wouldn't be possible if not for the help from the City of Maple Valley, the Tahoma Behavioral Health Collective, and the Tahoma School District. I'd like to thank each of these agencies for all of their help and partnership in putting this on tonight. So thank you very much. We couldn't have done it without you. Mental health is an important dynamic in our world today, and it's an important topic that we need to discuss. We're so thankful to have two clinicians with us tonight, Carrie Erickson and David Downing. If you have a question for Carrie or David, you can email it to them at the email address in the banner below. We'd love to hear your questions so that we can address them in the Q&A portion of the evening. So please get those in now. We want you to know that we understand that anonymity is important. This platform allows you to see us, but we can't see you. We will also not be sharing the name of anyone that asks a question, so please know that we'll respect your privacy and that it's important to us. We know this can be a heavy topic, and if you think you might need help or access to resources, please reference the websites and phone numbers included in the description in YouTube. We'd also like to bring some joy tonight, and so we have two featured local artists that have generously shared their talents with us tonight, Self and Lucia Flores-Weissman. In fact, we're going to start the musical portion of our evening right now with two original pieces from Self. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please welcome Self.
Hi, I'm Dace.
And I'm Arielle, and we are the band Self. Now, last spring we wrote this song, the Seattle Waltz, at the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah, I think it sounds a lot like it felt back then, full of trepidation and plodding along, waiting for some sort of resolution that may not come. But in this case, it does.
And the words reinforce that sense of hopeful melancholy by looking back with nostalgia and looking forward with hope. Here's the Seattle Waltz.
For all your raining, for all of your gloom, you freeze without frost and your musks and your blues. For all
You know, these are some pretty strange times we're living in. So before we play this song, which is a song we wrote called Revolutioneer, I just want to make sure that everybody knows that what I'm talking about here is a metaphorical revolution of the mind. Right, Lemmy?
Start the day with coffee and my pills. Turn on the large man in my chest and in my love and in my feels. Since we're talking about my personality, let's get the pronouns right. It's partnership. Before the moment, for the future generations, if not me.
Wow, that was fantastic. Boy, one of the things that I miss dearly about these past 10 plus months is live music. What a huge treat to hear from South tonight. So thank you so much. And also, I wasn't told that there was going to be a special guest appearance by Lenny. That was amazing. What a cute dog. Anyway, we're going to transition on to the Q&A portion of our evening. And I'd like to get you introduced to our speakers. We've got David Downing and Carrie Erickson. Hey, there you are. How are you doing, guys? Good to see you. Maybe we'll just kick this off with quick introductions. David, I'll let you go first.
Great. Thanks so much, Pete. First, I want to give a shout out to Dace and Ariel of Rock and More. You taught my son actually to play guitar through your business here in Maple Valley. So cheers to that. And thanks, Pete. Hello to everyone that joined us tonight. As Pete said, I am David Downing. I am a licensed mental health clinician with about 30 years working in the mental health field across ages with specialty training in working with children and youth. I lived here in Maple Valley for over 25 years, and I've raised 2 kids through the Tahoma School District. In my day job, I lead what is called Youth Eastside Services, which is the largest provider for behavioral health in East King County. And I also have, as a way of supporting our local community, a small practice here in town with my friend and office partner here, Carrie. As well, with others, I helped form what is called the Tahoma Behavioral Health Collective, which is made up of the city, the school district, and behavioral health providers, private and also community mental health organizations, to actually advance and support mental health in our community. With that, I'm going to now hand it off to you, Carrie.
Thanks, David. My name is Carrie Erickson. I'm a licensed mental health therapist and also a childhood specialist. David and I go way back. I don't know if you remember, David, but I was on your hiring committee at Youth Eastside Services.
Yeah, the hiring committee, about 30 people, yeah.
Yeah. At a wonderful nonprofit organization that serves all walks of life. So I've been working in the mental health field for about 20 years now. I currently have a private practice in Maple Valley, and I'm very blessed with all the clients that come my way from this wonderful community. Due to telehealth, I'm able to keep up with lots of my clients that are in the Seattle, Bellevue area as well. So that is a blessing in this COVID time. I am a mother, and I have a wonderful partner, and I have a parent of twin boys at Tahoma High School, and they are freshmen, yet they have yet to walk actually into the building as freshmen. So we're looking forward to that opportunity moving forward. I also serve with David and volunteer on the Tahoma Behavioral Health Collective. And it's just been such an honor to be a part of that from the ground up as we watch our entire community and school district embrace mental health. So thank you for having me today.
Fantastic. Thank you both. That's really helpful. So I'm going to start it off here. David, I'll point this one to you. Can you just level set for us and tell us what is mental health?
Well, that's actually kind of a big question. If you Google it, no doubt you'll get a lot of different kinds of answers, but I'm going to actually read one that I tend to like, and it's from the World Health Organization. And it is a state of well-being in which the individual realizes his or her own abilities, can cope with normal stresses of life, can work productively, and is able to make a contribution to one's community. The reason I like that is because mental health is so often thought of as disorders. It's thought of as, oh, I've got anxiety, I've got depression, or that person does. And really, we all have mental health. And that definition really defines that. Just as we have physical health, we also have mental health. And at times, our mental health is more strained than others. And there's really nothing wrong with that. One of the big things that we always want to say is that mental health is the same as physical health, right? Like, we need to be realistic about that. We've all got it. We all should expect that we're going to be more challenged at certain times, as many are during these times. And mental health and physical health interplay a lot. They impact each other a great deal.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that analogy, that mental health and physical health are analogous, that just like with physical health, there's times when you're in shape and there's times when you're not, and mental health can be the same way. That's helpful. Carrie, what have you been seeing in regard to mental health in our community in recent years?
Whoa, that's a big one. Thanks, Pete. I think that David and I decided to answer this question kind of in two parts, and I'm going to handle the part A, and that's going to be to address mental health trends before the pandemic. David will take over during COVID. So I'm going to answer this from the perspective of being a mental health clinician and being able to work with wonderful clients that come my way. Also, my conversations with colleagues, my friends, and being a mother and a parent. So what hits my office so often in many different forms is anxiety. It is the most common mental health disorder in the nation, but the good news is it's easiest to treat. And I say easiest to treat is it responds really well to medications and interventions and therapy. And we'll get into some of the interventions and the idea of therapy later, but I'm really, I like to start out that with clients, and that's very promising that you actually will feel better. We can overcome and take help of your anxiety. And the most common is general anxiety and social anxiety. Another big one that hits our couches, as I like to call it, or now our screens in telehealth, is depression. And depression comes in many different flavors. It can be more mild, or what I call the blues, not feeling so great, or lost your joy more often than not, or more severe, self-harming, suicidal ideation, and thoughts and actual suicide attempts and completion of the suicide. And unfortunately, I'm going to speak real truth to you right now, Pete. Maple Valley has seen a high number of deaths by suicide in the past few years, by both students and adults alike. I've been given permission to say some names that were clients of mine, and they have released their confidentiality. Garrett died by suicide in 2017. Lori, his mother, a wonderful human being and advocate to mental health. Lori's become close friend of David and now mine. We talk about Garrett as a collective whole because in his death by suicide, 7 other of his closest friends and adults died by suicide following in the years to come. This is what we call contagion. Unfortunately, other cities tend to be smaller towns, also have had contagion. I just read a news article that that's what Las Vegas school district is currently experiencing right now. We need to help stop the stigma against mental health. Lori always says, and we say together, it's okay to not be okay. There is help. We're here today to tell you that Maple Valley is no longer afraid to talk about the pain. The school districts in the city are here together to say, we have to embrace the pain. Now, I know that sounds a little bit confusing, but in the pain, if you're not alone in it, and if we can talk about it, that it's okay not to be okay, then I truly believe others will ask for help and we can save lives. So we're here to help you. You have some resources on your screen today. It's going to be followed up by email as well, that all you need to do is ask. And please keep asking, and we will keep trying to provide you the resources that you need. I know our community is not perfect, and I know we've made mistakes, but I truly hope we're finding a new path together. And thank you, Pete. And I was going to say, along with the depression and the anxiety that I've talked about, there's this idea of comorbidity, and that's depression, anxiety, and other mental illnesses coupled together, and often coupled with substance abuse. So, I mean, you can imagine that if you're dealing with mental health and the treatment isn't there for you, or you haven't asked for help, or it's not working, you may then turn to substance abuse to help alleviate your pain.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I love your message that we're all here to help, that we've got resources in this community, that it's okay to not be okay. Those are all really helpful messages. David, can you take the ball on that and talk to us a little bit more about what mental health has, what you've been seeing with regard to mental health during COVID times?
I can. And yes, I just want to reiterate, we are here as a community for people. So if you are in need, reach out and keep reaching out till you get the help that you need. So what Carrie said, multiply that by 100 or so. The real reality is that we have just seen mental health needs exacerbate, just really increase. So the number of people having mental health issues is much larger. And within that, there's a subgroup of people that have it even more, what we would say is acute. So they're more extreme symptoms that they're having. So there's more issues of self-harm and suicidality happening. Substance abuse is up. Domestic violence is up. There's domestic violence going on in teen dating relationships. Just general family violence has gone up. So the things that we've been seeing for like the last 10 plus years, that all the national research data shows, all of the surveying that youth do statewide and regionally, it showing all that same thing that Carrie's talking about in terms of the anxiety, the depression, the comorbidity of anxiety and depression together. Those have really, really been just very increased. And one of the challenges that there is that in a virtual world, not everybody reaches out. And that's one of the concerns that we have as practitioners in general, really for all age groups, and in particular with young people. We've seen across the youth mental health sector, not as many kids engaging in mental health services that we know actually need it. So that's really kind of something that we really want folks to know of be checking in with your kids and asking if they're okay, being really direct about it. An interesting thing is that there are some kids that have social anxiety or maybe have bullying in their history and the like. There are some kids actually that are actually doing actually pretty well in this environment. And there's some kids without those things even that are doing pretty well in this environment. So don't want to say that this experience is across the board in terms of mental health, hitting everybody in the same way. For some kids, doing online school and the like has actually worked better for them in certain ways, which has been an interesting thing that I was not expecting us to see with all of this. But the general most common thing we see is just lots of more mental health need and more serious in a more serious way.
Yeah. David, you mentioned, oh, go ahead, Carrie.
Oh, I was just going to add that another increase that we're seeing that David and I were having a conversation about was I have a friend who is a King County sheriff, and he talks about so much increase in domestic violence and young domestic violence and older too. And usually it's the calls are coming when they've been abusing some sort of substance. And that is huge right now. As you can imagine, if you have somebody who does harm you and you're at home during COVID locked in, your safe places are no longer there as much. So again, also in our resources, we have some help for you.
Awesome. Thank you for mentioning that. Absolutely. David, I wanted to touch on, you mentioned people not reaching out during COVID or during, normal times perhaps. And so the question I have for you, just wondered what the best ways are to care for your mental health during the pandemic.
Well, that's going to be unique to a lot of different people. So, I mean, I can say that, people have different regimens and routines. So, for example, myself as a human being, I have struggled with my mental health during the fact that we've been in this getting closer to a year now, right? And one of the things for me is physical routine. So physical health, working out, going out on a bike ride, going out on a run, those kinds of things are really, really important for a lot of people. So it's that tie that I was talking about in terms of the definition of mental health, getting yourself moving and getting the endorphins going. Depression and anxiety, all of that gets calm if you actually are doing a certain level of vigorous activity in a regular way. So, that is one way to take care of mental health. Also, people have to watch their cognitive thoughts and kind of the things they're thinking about in their head, because no one's really at a normal place right now in the sense of trying to do everything at your job or even within families, doing it at the same level that would be in usual times. Having that expectation, we probably really shouldn't be having that. And we need to be watching and making sure that we're not reinforcing in our heads that we are not being successful because we're not kind of meeting the normal routine. Those are really important things. Those messages that we carry in our heads become our reality and our emotions.
That's great.
Gary, you have anything you want to add?
Sure. I mean, the list could go on, and we'll continue to add to this list. So it's kind of think of this, you guys, as like a running list as you hear different things. But I think one of the things that I works with all ages, and I know teenagers, this would be fantastic, is the idea of a really great exercise routine. And whatever that's walking your dog, because, we all got rescue puppies during COVID, people, just saying. Walking your dog, everything from just if you hitting some push-ups and some sit-ups, and been coupled by, I've been really blessed to my trainer, Nikki from the Buffalo, reiterates to all of us that breathing, people, breathing from within truly helps start and restart your central nervous system, diaphragm. And the idea that if you can start your day or even a break in the middle of your day, and teenagers can do this, we can all do this and really do some focused breathing. What you're doing is decreasing your anxiety and you're being in the present moment. And that's the idea of mindfulness, another Google word for you guys to use. Mindfulness is the equivalent of anti-anxiety. And that's the ability to be in the present and the here and now. So there, again, we'll do a running list as we go on, but that's just an ad that I had right now.
That's great. I get pinged by my watch every so often to take a minute and breathe, and I could do better at listening to what my watch is telling me. I'm going to remember that. Carrie, you've mentioned a couple of times that there's a rise in anxiety and depression, and Are there things to watch for in ourselves or with others or in our family that to be mindful for that just to help them out?
Sure. I mean, when you think about the idea of anxiety and depression, it's going to look very different from one person to one person. So I definitely want to say to the parents out there, friends out there, partners, that really put it under the umbrella of who is the person you're worried about, and really under their personality. So for example, what you're going to be looking for around depression is there more isolation from your teenager than there typically was? Not, all teenagers isolate, like want some private time. I know my boys are wanting that these days, but is it over the top to the point where they're avoiding some activities normally that they wouldn't have before? Other things to look for when it comes down to some depression symptoms is agitation, irritability, more sleep than usual, or difficulty with sleep, turning to unwanted things to soothe you, whether it's substance abuse, food and emotional eating, or the opposite, trying to gain back control because of flooded with anxiety by restricting eating or binging. Other things to pay attention to around anxiety is the idea there's a difference between what I call physical anxiety and mind anxiety. Physical anxiety might be the symptoms of racing heart, sweaty palms, rapid breathing, flushed face, those type of physical symptoms. The mind anxiety is more of the idea of racing thoughts, focusing on irrational fears, phobias. You normally could drive no problem, but all of a sudden you're panicked to get in the car and hit the road. Other thoughts that I talk about is the snowball effect. One fear becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think David spoke to this other part about anxiety a lot, is this idea of negative self-talk and feeling like truly believing your thoughts that might be actually not based on any form of fact, but more like an imposter trying to invade you. So those are just some things to pay attention to regarding anxiety and depression.
So this is for either of you, but if you see those types of things going on in family members or even in yourself, what's the best way to help someone that's experiencing that?
The first thing is to actually have a very direct and intentional conversation with somebody that is very empathic and compassionate and clear to them that they can say whatever it is that's going on with them. And I will say that probably will feel artificial for many people. I mean, I don't know, Carrie, you yourself, but I mean, I'm a father of 2 young adults now, and having conversations like that still felt artificial, though I've been working in this field forever. But it's really important to do that. And whether it's talking to your kids or it's talking to your spouse or it's talking to a friend, I mean, this is important for adults to be connecting with each other. Identify what it is that you're seeing and say, hey, are you okay? This is what I'm seeing. I care about you. Let's talk about what's going on. Most people are going to respond with a sense of relief and want to talk.
That's great. What's we've been at this for 10 plus months now, this COVID business, and that's a long time to be doing anything. So what's the best way to stay motivated, particularly with regard to mental health?
I think that's a really unique question, because it really depends, I think, on the personality and the interest. I find motivation through friends. Oh goodness, that's hard when we're in lockdown, if you will, or isolating. So I would be creative as much as possible to find ways to connect with your people. Whether it's go for a social distance walk, go for a social distance happy hour. Maple Valley's opening up with our restaurants, people. Let's support our small businesses. Little shout out to that. So obviously do it in a safe way. And I understand and realize that a lot of people are scared right now. And especially my clients who have OCD, right? Holy cow, if you are worried about the idea of germs and getting sick and the fear, imagine trying to live in the real world now. Yeah. So, but the remedy, guys, I know it's hard, is you got to face some fears from exposure. So take baby steps. The more you isolate and stay home, right, the more you're unmotivated to create change, and the more then you're stuck in some of your insecurities and your fears. The kids are a big one. Like, what helps motivate them? I get that all the time. Like, they're not doing well in school. What should I do? They're not showing up on their screen. What should I do? My kids have Fs. I've given up. I'm not going to help. I mean, I understand that as parents. I completely get that because it's exhausting. And I certainly don't think I would have done really well learning online and staying motivated as a kid. So, I mean, the rest of the population, and sorry, teachers, you may not like my answer, but love on your kids and love them right where they're at. This is a very small window, let's hope, in our entire lives and future. At age 37 years old, they're going to look back and realize they're resilient, that they made it through, and their social, emotional health, their EQ is more important for their success than their IQ. Teachers, I understand. Thank you for all you're doing to help our kids learn. And parents, I understand that too. But it's a very small window in their greater big life. So really, to help your kids to stay motivated, love and support them and get them right where they're at.
I just think also there's this need to be really intentional and setting some level of a routine in life. And this isn't just for kids going to school. It is in general that it's really important for us to be keeping routines as much as possible. So what did we do before the pandemic shut down? Did you get up in the morning and go for a run? Did you get up and go work out? Like, what did you do in some kind of a way? And if you didn't do that, we really encourage people to be intentional to create one in some way, because routine on the kind of the external part of us doing that actually helps create a level of internal calmness. So when we're anxious and having mental health challenges, literally, if we have a way that we're externally creating some kind of routine and expectation, it helps us create a calmness inside.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
That's great. We have a question from the online here. I'm gonna and this I can relate to this when sometimes our kids will not want to be doing things because mom and dad are saying so, and when they talk to somebody else, all of a sudden everything works out, and they're willing to listen and try the things and what have you. And so, with regard to that, as it relates to counseling, if I can tell that my child is depressed, but they say they don't want to do counseling, when I, as a parent, maybe I know that that's a good outlet where somebody independent of mom and dad can be talking with them. What do you do in that kind of a situation when they're kind of denying that idea of wanting to go to counseling?
When I have people reach out in situations like that, I have people start with a conversation that I was talking about, where it's this really engaged, compassionate conversation, and they're concerned. And I would even say, maybe you don't see it in the same way, but this is how I'm seeing it. And I'd really like you to give this a shot and go see a person that we choose together a couple of times and just see how it goes. So you're doing it in this kind of smaller, bite off kind of a way, and you're using it. You're also using the fact that they have power in making some decisions around who it is that they see. I mean, Terry and I both know not every clinician is for everybody, right? Not every client is a good fit for us in terms of how we do our best work, and finding a person that has that right ability to get that relationship with the kid. It's pretty rare. It's pretty rare from my experience for a kid to come in and not over a few sessions be able to build rapport where the kid's like, oh, I actually kind of want to come here. It usually does happen. So if you do it and sell it as a small bite, it usually does. And like I said, bring them in on the decision making and making sure that they feel it's a right fit.
Yeah, that's great.
I would also add, absolutely, David. And then there's the crisis, right? Where if they're in mental health crisis, they don't have a choice. We're going to keep them alive. And I know that sounds more harsh, but that's the other extreme. That's when we as parents or uncles or grandparents step in and say, baby, I love you so much. And if you were having a diabetic crisis or you were die, if we didn't control your blood sugar, we'd go to the ER and get the meds that we need to. And so, a therapist is also can be a mental health 911, whether it's a crisis therapist, that comes to the house, of course, and you can access them through King County, or if it's their own therapist and you need to try to get in sooner than later, or a next day appointment at a mental health agency like where David works. There are opportunities. And so that's where I would triage it depending on the level of crisis. We're not going to give our kids a choice if it is a life or death mental health matter.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's
Yeah,
great.
and I mean, let's just be real. People that are actually clinicians for young people are really passionate about it. It's a real choice to do that work. So kids can tell that.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, you can get them to bite off a small chunk of time,
Mhm.
and they usually will fit with it. I mean, we have in this state what is called youth initiated treatment, which means kids that are ages 13 and above actually have the legal rights to sign off for their own treatment. People have varying opinions of that. There's also what's called family initiated treatment. So if you're in a crisis and you really need to get your kid in, there is the route of that family initiated treatment. However, I will say that getting a young person to engage in treatment, really having them as an ally in that process is really an important part of effective treatment. So unless it's a real crisis where you've got to get them into the ER and the like, it's always better to have your teen as an ally with you in doing that.
Absolutely.
So thankful for the work that you all do and your peers as well in engaging with our youth and those that need help boosting their mental health. Carrie, I'm going to jump back to you, and I don't want to revisit really quickly the topic of domestic violence. And you had talked about the risk of there being a rise of domestic violence during the pandemic, and kind of the elimination of maybe the outlet for a safe place and so on. What can be done to help those families during these times?
Yeah, that's such an important question. First of all, how asking for help under extreme duress and safety is really, really difficult. It's very challenging. And so any opportunity that a person has that is in their normal part of their schedule, right? Even if it was normally on Mondays, that person went to the grocery store. That's where you would text a friend, a safe friend that'd be like, meet you at the apples department, right? At the grocery store and reach out during more of your scheduled normal activities. If it's less safe and you're just beginning to realize this is an unstable, maybe emotionally abusive relationship with anger outbursts, maybe use an opportunity where you are gathering with a friend to go with a walk to reach out and say, hey, this is not good. I'm pretty scared. I want to start creating kind of a safer team environment and build from there. I will also say that there are clinicians that specialize in domestic violence, and I would find one around that. As much as possible. If you can't do it safely in person when you are with a friend, ask them to do and somehow pass that information on to you. And obviously, whenever in extreme duress, please call 911 to get some help as soon as possible.
I also think it's really important that if there's families where there's a lot of high stress, taking a break from each other is really important and doing it in a really intentional way. So a really common thing that I'll do in families where I know that there's more prone to domestic violence is literally set it up like, okay, who is in your safe bubble that you can actually spend time with, and set it up so that, the kids are going over and they're at Aunt Susie's house for 2 days a week, and it's set what that time is. It's not going because things are not going well, but literally just taking really that pressure kind of cooker situation off of everybody in the family. And it isn't about the kids, it's for everybody to have just a time away, so that it's just not a constant. Because especially during this time where everybody has been more really hunkered down at home and not out doing anything, right? You just need to be able to have a break from one another. That's real. We love our families, but we all need a break, right?
Yeah. You bet. I'll for either of you, but question from the chat here is how do I access telehealth at this time? So how does that work? How does telehealth work? And is it kind of like this, or what are some of the nuances or things that we might expect experiencing that mode of healthcare?
I can answer that. Oh, go ahead, David. I was just going to say I could answer that in a private practice clinician kind of way, and then I can hand off the baton, David, for you to address more in like a nonprofit organization way. The idea with private practice clinicians is you can access them through Psychology Today is one of the best mediums. A lot of people are on there, and Psychology Today has embraced the idea of telehealth. And in a lot of clinicians, whether it's in their website or in their bio in Psychology Today, will say offering telehealth. And they literally can either have a link to it or they're an email or phone number that will lead directly there. And then the clinician should be walking you through how their telehealth works, whether it's on the phone, whether it's through their text or through email. They'll literally help lead you to a link that will appear on screen. And thankfully, I mean, it's not super easy all the time because we have to depend on good wireless service and good connection that day. Trust me, it goes south. But thankfully, a lot of the telehealth platforms is link, point, and click, and you're there. And you literally are in a clinician's online waiting room, waiting to be brought in, if you will.
Yeah, and I would just add, I've worked on various platforms and had staff work on various platforms, and they all have different aspects of it where they can be more challenging and some are easier than others. So, but they're all HIPAA compliant. And if they're not, your clinician would need to tell you that. And HIPAA compliant means that your information is secure. So what's happening back and forth between you, you would have a two-way on the screen. So you can see us right now, but we can't see you. But in telehealth, it's like you're sitting in the same room. It actually is to be where we feel more natural doing that work in this way than what we did at the beginning. At the beginning, it was more awkward. Working with younger kids is more challenging via telehealth and definitely is more parent work. But teens and adults, it actually works often well in that way. But they're really pretty simple. It's really pretty simple. Once your clinician will send you a link. And many of you probably are on Zoom platforms for personal reasons or the like. And that's a really common. There's a HIPAA compliant version of Zoom. That's it. You get a link, click on it. There you go.
Yeah, that's great. Another from the audience here. Everyone's talking about mental health, but where do I find a list of the resources available to me? And I'll point out that below in the description within YouTube, there's a list of some resources that we can point you to with phone numbers and websites and so forth, but and a wonderful banner that just popped up on the screen here as well. But David, Carrie, if there's other resources that you're aware of that you'd like to highlight, this would be a good time to punch those in.
Well, Carrie mentioned Psychology Today. So if you go on Psychology Today Therapist Finder, you can put in the region that you're in and you can get a listing of clinicians, and it will often say if they're open. And if people, have issues in terms of whether or not they can afford therapy, a lot of private clinicians actually slide their scale. So those are options to look at. But also on the websites for both the city and the school district, you'll find other partners, and I'll highlight those that are under Tahoma Behavioral Health Collective because they will accept Medicaid, private insurance, and they often have programs that support if people have an inability to pay. So Sound Mental Health, Kent Youth and Family Services, and what used to be known as Nexus, but is now known as the Wise Social Impact Program. And those are all really solid programs, integrated care. So those community mental health organizations have psychiatry, mental health, team of mental health clinicians, master's level clinicians, and the like. So they've got a whole team in that way. And those of us that are in private practice generally have connections to psychiatry as well. So the practice that we're in, we actually have one of our partners in there is psychiatric ARNP. So you can really find it through Psychology Today. And by going to those two websites, it lists our partners and other resources.
That's great.
I would just add that also the Crisis Connection and the King County Crisis Line is a great resource. I mean, I refer clients there. When they ask me questions, I'm like, I don't know. They also have a group of people that, they triage, obviously, and that will have access to so many resources in the state of Washington. And you can call 711 in Washington, and that's access to that. So that can be really, really helpful too when you're just not finding the answer or you just want immediate help of what you're looking for.
That's great. Didn't know those things. That's great. So couple more questions coming in here. How do I know if I need medication, and where do I go for that?
Yeah, Pete, you need it.
I know.
We've been talking about that for a long time.
Yeah,
Pete.
I mean,
Here's
I'm
our
glad,
Yeah,
intervention
yeah.
I'm glad you're
for the
meeting with
public.
us. We're here for you, Pete.
Appreciate you.
Well, I mean, I
No,
can
but seriously.
answer it, or you can take it. I mean, in a serious sense, medication is sometimes needed for mental health. Sometimes people's chemistry of their body is in such a way that, in a temporary way, literally getting out of a place of depression or getting their anxiety to a level that's manageable requires so. Um,
Mhm.
Sometimes people need it as a more an ongoing way because of the way that their body just is. That's just how they kind of came into the world. Um, and most people, it's short term. It's I recommend that if people are having problems with anxiety, they engage with a clinician first, a therapist, um, and then work with their therapist to get connected to a provider that can do an assessment around medication. What happens a lot is people will go to their primary care docs and seek out medication, but they're not getting therapy. So it's not actually addressing the mental health issues. So they can end up on medications that, one, maybe they don't need to be on those, or two, they should be doing talk therapy along with it, and their episode of the time that they're on the medication does not need to be, into perpetuity, which can often happen.
Yeah.
I'd just like to add that, David, absolutely everything you said. And then I'm also a big supporter and proponent of naturopathic medication. If I have a lot of clients, they're like, don't even tell me I should have, I will not listen to you. And that I will do an SSRI. And I want to obviously not push back on their value system. So I've learned that there are other places and forms that you can try to see if that helps you. And it can. As some find a lot of remedies seeking a naturopathic doctor that specializes in mental health, and there are some. They would work with supplements, and naturopathic doctors also have the ability to prescribe what we call SSRIs. Those are the go-to, your good old Zolofts and Prozacs, etc., for anxiety and depression. But they also have another, repertoire underneath their belt. And also, like, in addition to medication and therapy, there's things like acupuncture and yoga. All those things can really help with the central nervous system to really get at what you're looking for, increase your exercise routine, work on your sleep hygiene, go see a nutritionist to nail down making sure you're getting the nutrients that you need. Going to get a really good evaluation, especially I say in women, your thyroid, making sure that's on point, because there's a lot of medical issues within a thyroid that will mimic mental health problems. For example, Hashimoto's. If you just do the mental health treatment and you're not connecting it with your medical side of the thyroid, then you're not actually getting the full benefit of what you need. So it's more of a holistic, systemic approach to mental health as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really big change that has happened in the field of mental health, is really the connection to physical health, and vice versa. And it's really the big driving force in our industry, is really the integration of those two, because we really know that there's such a strong tie between physical wellness and mental health, and the causal factors that go back and forth between those. I'm just going to say, as I've said it before, so I'm kind of broken record it. If people are having issues with either anxiety or depression, doing some intense cardio, 20 to 30 minutes a day, even if it's not your gig, usually getting out and doing that gets the endorphins, and it will get you calm. It's hard to get motivated to do that if it's not your thing, but I just really encourage people to do actions like that before seeking medications, to see what can be done before going that route.
And for whatever reason, if you have a disability or unable to do some of the intense cardio work, Maple Valley has this really great program. I don't know if you got it in the mail, David, in your practice, but they have this whole nature and exercise program now for mental health. Love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Maple Valley. And we have such gorgeous surrounding locations. So even if you're only able to go for a walk around Lake Wilderness, or just stroll in nature and sit by the stream, you can really enter some of those mindfulness places and contemplation bringing in nature that can also really help release the quiet version of the dopamines you're looking for too. So I like to kind of do in my own life, David. I'm doing what you do. That cardio get me, and then I also like to try to couple it in that kind of nature, kind of down home kind of way. So just wanted to give that aspect in there as well.
Yeah, I think that's really true. And I appreciate that because if people are differently able to not able to get out in that kind of a way, I mean, you were mentioning mindfulness, and I'll say that, there's meditation, there's great meditation apps.
Nice.
And if that sounds woo woo out there to people, I get it because it would have to me at one time in my life. But the more I've done practice over the years, some of those things actually really just turn the mind off and let it calm for periods of time and not just be constantly activated. And there's a lot of good research behind those things. So it actually does have a good impact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We one of the big reasons we moved out here was because of the surroundings. It's just absolutely gorgeous and so accessible with the great trail system and a variety of ways that you can get out into nature out here, whether it's just a walk on the path or, like you said, Carrie, sitting by a stream or river or going on a hike. All of those things are just fantastic. I for one, I'm a big music fan, and just turning on some tunes and letting that kind of join me for parts of the day is a big release for me and a way to kind of level set, calm down, and then be productive. So I definitely appreciate that.
I just want to say, Pete, that's really good, and that touches on what Carrie has said. Is that if we're looking at a treatment plan of helping somebody, it is so unique to an individual and what actually works for them. So we can give these general ways that we know are effective and can work for people, but everybody is an individual. So what you just talked about is a perfect example of that would be in a treatment plan.
Yeah.
We would tell you to do that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, you said earlier I needed medication. If that's my medication, then sign me up. I'm ready.
Yeah. Well, we'd start there, Pete. We definitely would start there. Get it.
Let's do it.
Yeah. And we were joking, but I mean, medication is a really important part, and there's really good research behind it. And combined with talk therapy, it can be one of the most effective interventions for specific mental health challenges.
Well, one just quick point on that, David, to kind of put a period on that topic, just is every provider able to prescribe medications as they're needed, or is that something that we need to be selective in who we're working with, or that would get perhaps referred out or something?
So
go ahead.
You're a medical provider, so you have psychiatric ARNPs that do a lot of that work, and we have Ashley McGinnis is in our practice that we have, or a psychiatrist are the ones that prescribe medication. So in the field around psychiatric medications, that really is what you have. And I would really recommend, if you're going to use psychiatric medications, to connect to those professionals, because they have deeper training and experience actually around that, and not seeking it through your primary care doc. And that's not a slander primary care docs, and some of them do have more experience around that than others. It's just the psychiatrist and the psychiatric ARNPs have specialized training and lots of experience to manage that. And they're more likely to hold you accountable to actually doing fuller treatment, to being in therapy and the like, which I think is a really important part, because research really ties together and shows the importance of both of those things happening simultaneously to get to recovery.
And I would just add that I get a lot of clients come to me and they're on medication, but it's not working. Right. So it's like, well, if it's not working, let's change that up. And instead of sending them back, not that their doctor is bad per se, their pediatrician, I feel like that's a more specialized area that's when I'm really highlighting the psychiatric nurse practitioner or the psychiatrist, because there could be some comorbidity going on. There could be some ADHD along with anxiety, and those are different medications, and those are different interventions that can also help out with that. So you want to really see a specialist when you have a lot going on.
Yeah, that's great. Another question from the audience here that I want to put out at you there. We'll start with David, I suppose. What do you propose for teens and older children during the pandemic?
I'm not totally sure, like in terms of what we're looking at there. I would say that teens and older kids are missing out on a lot of their protective factors. So thinking about how do you mimic those as best you can. So kids are not in their sports, or they're not in their, drama plays, at the school and things like that, and trying to figure out how you can do some kind of replacement activities during that time and how you can optimize the time that they are able to engage with their friends.
Mhm.
Um, there is a lot of virtual ways to do that. It's not equivalent, but I mean, I have young adults. Carrie has teens at home, so she can probably speak to this really well as to what she's seeing. But for my kids that are young adults, um, they connect very much all the time virtually. My son does a lot of online. There's all these whole gaming kinds of communities and the like that they stay engaged in that way. So and creating a bubble that's a safe bubble of people that they can be around, that they know are being following what they need to. That to me seems like kind of what I've seen young people do successfully. Having said that, I won't say that it's this is a perfect thing. So
Mhm.
it's still not equivalent to it. I mean, it's a real gap for kids not to be on sport teams and to have the mentors with who are, coaches or mentors, and the drama teachers doing the plays. These are mentors in kids' lives, and those people not being around. There is a miss in that way, but any way that you can put something that mimics that.
That's great. Another one that came in, Carrie, I'll have you address this one. My significant other and I are having a increase in conflicts during the pandemic. What can help?
Whew, yeah. I will be honest that my practice is off the hook right now with calls for couples therapy. Part of my training, I'm a marriage and family therapist, and it is so common right now. We're all living in one roof, right? And I'm getting more. I mean, family therapy is more of a specialty, and a lot of people don't ask for that. I'm getting that way more in the last 9 months than I've had in my entire practice. And I would say reach out and ask for help. Absolutely. We have so many really talented people in our community that are trained in couples therapy, or even on telehealth. You can access them in Bellevue, you can Kirkland, and hit a few sessions. If it's not your jam, it's not your jam, but at least they could link you to resources. Like I'm going to give you a couple names of John and Julie Gottman from the University of Washington. They're the leading researchers and clinicians and teachers on relationship therapy and couples therapy. They also have Bring Baby Home curriculum, and you can get TED Talks by them, you can get books by them, podcasts by them. They're really hands-on, really easy to read, and practical help for you. So I guess that's what I would say is, again, ask for the help.
Yeah, yeah. We're starting to wrap up on the Q&A side of things. I think we've got time for one more. But as we begin to open back up and as we start to come out of the pandemic, I think generally the thought would be that that's going to be a good thing and a positive thing for a lot of us. But David, you mentioned kind of at the start that some people are doing really well during this time. Some people are not. And when we go back, that I can see how that might flip, and coming back might be difficult as well. So, what are things to watch out for as far as that goes, and relative to mental health, and what can we do to help?
Well, I definitely think we're going to see folks that have social anxiety and obsessive compulsive disorder, the issue of coming back into society with, the germ still present in some way. Like that's going to be a very big challenge. And I think Carrie was mentioning earlier, so a level of gradual kind of exposure out is something that is probably a good route. That's it's called exposure therapy, which is a lot of evidence and research behind it as a way to gradually move back in that kind of a way. My biggest concern is that as the world opens up more, the mental health needs that know are there are going to be compounded pretty big in the sense of what's going to be the help that's needed.
Mm.
And I think that's part of the work for us collectively as a community, to really be working to make sure that there's supports there and that we're checking in with one another once the kids get back in school and they're around their coach or a specific teacher that they know well, like I said, or the drama teacher. There's going to be things that are recognized going on with kids that that haven't been seen because they're not talking with their parents or hunkering in the room. Adults actually that are around kids in those spaces are often one of the biggest sources of identifying and making a referral. As you identified, kids will often talk with other people that are not their parents.
Mhm.
And there's nothing wrong with that, because
Yeah.
I said I've been doing this work for about 30 years, and my kids are more likely to turn and talk to somebody that is not me.
Mhm.
And it's not that I don't have a good relationship with my kids, and I can intentionally ask, and I will get a response probably, but not always. It's always easier to talk to somebody that's not within your family system. So, I mean, my big concern is the number of people that need help and what that's going to mean, and making sure that we're positioned to do that. And I think people should be looking for, resources now,
Mhm.
because we're already starting to see this uptick. So as things are opening more, we're going to see that.
And on a practical side around that, like to build off that idea of social anxiety, there's a lot of anxious kids that are really scared going back to school. And I have a lot of parents who are like, what am I going to do? And I mean, my child has given me permission. I have one of those, never been in the high school ever, has social anxiety already. And so like, holy cow. And I guess the idea that has been really helpful for me as a parent and my kiddo and also my clients is to get them plugged into one safe person, just one, if you can more, but reach out virtually, telehealth, knock on their door. If your kid's a soccer player, meet the soccer coach, meet the activities coordinator, meet the drama teacher, reach out on telehealth and say, hey, my kid needs one trusted person to get them feeling safe when they're in school. Can you be that? Can you be that person? And the thing that we're so blessed with Maple Valley and all our teachers and our coaches and our administration, truly, I know this is generalization, but they love the kids and they really like to be able to show up for the kids. They sometimes just need more of a direct ask of how to. So that would be one practical way as a parent that I think you could support your kid who's really anxious about returning.
That's great.
I also think there's a lot of anxious parents and concerned about their kids and falling behind academically during this time. And, I'm not sure we have a magical answer to that. But what I would say is try to cut yourself some anxiety around that, because the schools are going to figure out how to get kids up to standard, and the entire world is in this position. So it's not just you, it's not just your family. I get why people would definitely be worried about that. And I really worry for parents, I want them to be sure they're being realistic. Like the schools will get kids back on par. I don't know what that'll look like, because nobody fully does, right? I'm sure with the district yet, Pete, there's a lot of things to be determined. There may be summer schools happening to get kids up. Who knows what that's going to look like? But there's certain standards that kids need to get to. And my wife is a teacher, so it's like I see all this and the challenges that they have. It's happening with everybody. So you're not alone. Your kid is not alone. There's time to still get your kids back on par.
That's great. Well, with that, I think we're going to wrap up the Q&A session. So Carrie, David, gosh, thank you both so much for sharing these insights and providing your perspective. I learned a lot tonight, and really appreciate you joining us. For those of you out there, if you didn't hear an answer to your specific question, please make note of the resources in the description of the event in YouTube and reach out to those resources for further information. I'm sure they'd love to hear from you. And again, for all of you out there, thank you for coming tonight. We really appreciate it. I'm so thankful for you joining us. I'd like to take the opportunity to say thank you again to the City of Maple Valley, to the Tahoma Behavioral Health Collective for all the great work that they're doing, and to the Tahoma School District for their support of our community's mental health and for providing the resources needed for this event tonight. Special thank you to Mr. Rick Haig and Mrs. Liz Thiebert from the Tahoma School District, and Mrs. Stephanie Williams from the City of Maple Valley for the production of tonight's video and making all of the behind the scenes magic happen. I'd like to say thank you again to David Downing and Carrie Erickson for their insights in this Q&A piece. Special thank you to Self for their amazing performances earlier. We're going to end our event tonight with 2 original songs from Lucia Flores Weissman. We are really thankful for Lucia supporting this event as well. Before we jump into her performance, we want to make sure that you have access to additional information and resources. Again, please look at that YouTube description of this event for these resources. There's a great link on the screen here that includes them also. We'll also have the information on a slide following Lucia's performance. And again, just take note of those resources. So once again, thank you to everyone for being here. Be well, take care of one another. Please welcome and enjoy Lucia Flores-Weissman. Good night, everybody.
Hi everyone, my name is Lucia Flores-Weissman, and this is an original song called Tomorrow's a New Day. Breathe, you're okay. It was a bitter and a patter on your heart. Tomorrow's a new day. Cry, I know it hurts, but keeping all the pain inside your soul will only make it worse. But keeping all the pain inside your soul will only make it worse. But keeping all the pain inside your soul will only make it worse. Hurt yourself tight, 'cause in the end you're the only one who controls your brake lights. Smile, you made it through this night. Reflect on what you have and what you own. A beautiful life. Reflect on what you have and what you own. A beautiful life. Reflect on what you have and what you own. A beautiful life. Breathe, I swear it helps. Reflect on what you see and how you feel. It's the only way out. Just breathe. You're okay. It was a pitter and a patter on your heart. Tomorrow's a new day. Tomorrow's a new day. Tomorrow's a new day. Thanks so much for sticking around and listening to all the great people here. This last song is Time Flies. It's an original, so thank you. Well, I feel the days are just slipping away. Is it Tuesday? Is it Sunday? 'Cause it all just feels the same. And I'll try to keep my days in line. just a reminder that it's okay to not be perfect. And I'm so glad that all of you guys are working on your mental health, as am I. It's really important to come into 2021 with a great attitude. You guys got this. Thank you.